Welcome to the Alsandor Law Podcast, your go-to resource for demystifying family law with experience and empathy by your side. Hosted by Attorney Cheryl Alsandor, founder and lead attorney at the Alsandor Law Firm and a board-certified family law specialist. Together with Attorney Cheryl, delve into the intricate world of divorce, child custody, and more, sharing valuable insights, expert interviews, and real-life stories to support you on your family's legal journey. No matter what challenges come your way, our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Join us and let us help you find clarity amidst the legal maze, paving the way for a brighter future.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Alsandor Law Podcast. My name is Richard Matthews. I'll be doing a special host guest thing for Cheryl this morning. Cheryl, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Are you excited to get your podcast off the ground and going?
I am excited. I'm excited to share information and hopefully help people out.
Awesome. So why don't we start off really quickly, because I know this can be a short episode for your new listeners. First, why don't you start off telling me who you are? And what you guys do at Alsandor Law Firm.
So I'm Cheryl Alsandor again. I am a family law attorney. I've been practicing family law for about 25 years. I'm board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization, which means I really get in depth with it and get to call myself a family law expert. But what we are experts at the most is helping people. We like to help people who are going through family issues such as divorce, child custody, child support. People want to see their children, or they don't want to be married to their spouses and they want things to be fair. We can help with all of that.
And my understanding as someone who doesn't do a lot with family law stuff is that there's a lot to know about these subjects. Like if it's your first time having to deal with like a custody issue or the first time having to deal with divorce, there's a lot of things that you can come in and actually help someone so they get, outcomes that are positive for them and both sides of the case. That's really what you guys work for, is like when in situations, is that right?
That's right. We try to make the outcome most favorable for our client and not just give them a win, but everybody's win is different. So we really listen closely to what the client wants or what we think they may need based on their circumstances. And we try to give them a tailor-made outcome.
So what are some of the top sort of like problems that customers come to you for out there at Alsandor Law Firm?
The top one I would say is either divorce. Divorce is at the top, of course. And then child issues. Someone is wanting to see their child, have a relationship with their child, or someone is maybe needing some child support, or maybe there's something not good going on with the parent-child relationship, and we're needing to fix it for a parent so that the other parent is doing what they should do or abstaining from doing what they shouldn't do.
So just my first question at the top of my head is, and I think a lot of people run into this question, why should someone consider hiring an attorney or maybe even just listening to this podcast and learning about the kind of stuff that you do when they're running into these situations instead of trying to deal with them themselves?
They should not want to try to deal with it themselves because, the law is broad. It's broad, it's deep. Family law is complex. And if they make the wrong decision, that's going to impact possibly their financial rights or the relationship that they have with their child, the amount of time they have with their child, the decisions that can be made for their child. And so to the layperson, it may appear, hey, this is pretty easy. I will just go with my gut and follow my intuition and I'll make a right decision. But with the law, sometimes a wrong decision is hard to correct. And so you really want to have someone that is familiar with the court system, that knows the judges, that especially knows the law, so that you can be navigated well, you can make good decisions, and you're not trying to correct errors. That's a more difficult thing to do, but we do help people correct the errors they made when they were representing themselves.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And I know the law is such a complicated thing. That's why we have people like you who keep up with these kind of things and keep it on top of it. And I said 25 years is a long time to be studying and working with anything, especially family law. So my question here for you is, what is the purpose for you of starting a podcast like the Alsandor Law Podcast? What do you hope that you'll be putting into the marketplace that will hopefully help your potential clients in the future?
Well, I want them to know about what we do And I want them to see our law firm as a resource for their family law related questions. There's some questions and some thoughts that people have that are repeated. They're erroneous thoughts. It's misinformation. So we want to correct the misinformation. And then we also want to answer commonly asked questions. So we want to be that resource for people when they have family law issues, and we want it to be a resource that they can trust.
Absolutely. And I know you and I chatted, over the past couple of weeks, we talked about some of the series you're putting together on this podcast. You've got some series on like rules to follow when you're working with family law stuff. You've got a series coming out on frequently asked questions people have about family law. You got a
Right.
series of content coming out on questions they should ask, but they don't know to because they haven't spent 25 years in family law. You've got a series coming out on like myths and truths for these things. So you got a lot of stuff coming here in the Alsandor Law Podcast that you think hopefully will be a really valuable resource to your community. So I know I'm excited to see all this stuff. I guess my question here for you is, how do you imagine listening to this podcast or sharing this podcast with other people in the community might help them solve their problems or help them, get what they're looking for in their legal cases?
Okay. And so you're asking me, how can we share the podcast?
So what I'm asking is, if someone who's listening to this podcast, how would listening to the podcast actually help them make better decisions in either hiring an attorney or making the right choices to pursue the cases that they have in front of them? Is this kind of resource that they can just either share with their friends or listen to themselves and really get an understanding of what they're actually facing?
I think it's both. Sometimes our friends and family members, they can guide us, especially when you're going through a family legal issue. Sometimes one's emotions sort of take over one's thinking. And so for a lot of our clients, they're not thinking as clearly as they normally would, especially when they're going through a divorce or they're going through a child custody case. So the podcast is definitely something that I would want people to share with their friends, their family, and even sort of meditate on themselves, so that they can make a good decision when they're facing a legal problem. That decision might just be, hey, how do I deal with summer visitation? Oh, the podcast is giving me an answer. Or it may be something deeper. Maybe I need to go to court to change my summer visitation or expand upon it. So the podcast will hopefully answer that as well. Or maybe someone just needs that third-party perspective from a friend or family member who's listened to the podcast that can kind of give them some objective insight.
Yeah.
So I think the person who needs the help as well as for their support system.
Absolutely. And I know you'll also be telling some stories and bringing on past clients and doing a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of community resources here in this podcast. So I'm excited to see you put this together. My last sort of question for you on this, as we just wrap up this introductory episode for the Alsandor Law Podcast, is twofold. How often do you expect to release content, and where can they find it?
So we should be releasing content at least once a week, and they should be able to find it on our website. There will be a link, and then also on our social media. So we've got Facebook. We also will have Instagram, but our website's going to probably be the easiest place to go. And then anywhere where you find your podcast will be there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have the Alsandor Law Podcast will be on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. That's the biggest player, but it'll also be on YouTube Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, all the places that you usually find your podcast. The Alsandor Law Podcast will exist. And all those links will be on the alsandorlaw.com website when you click on the podcast link. And thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on and just doing this really brief introduction to this podcast. The real content, the good stuff, is going to start in the next episode. So come back for that. We'll be hearing from Cheryl and some of her clients, her stories, other people on her team. You're doing a lot of stuff over the course of the next couple of years with your podcast. So thank you again for coming on and doing this. And thank you for being a resource to your community.
You are most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Alsandor Law Podcast. If you need expert legal representation for matters about family law, the Houston Family Law Team at the Alsandor Law Firm is here to help. Visit alsandorlaw.com to learn more. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review our show and share it with others who might benefit from the conversations. Join us next week as we continue to explore crucial family law topics. Stay resilient and know that we're committed to supporting you every step of your journey.